Hello and welcome to our online learning session, How to Build Solid Financial Foundations for Growing Multi-Academy Trusts. My name's Alex Middleton, and together with my colleague Guy Burton, we've put together the following 30 minutes of content for you. We're going to tell you a little bit more about iplicit. We're going to explain a little bit more about why iplicit for education. We'll give you a short product tour. But first, we're going to share some research with you that was conducted for us at the back end of 2022, where many school and MAT leaders were interviewed, and the topic was what's keeping them up at night. What are the top 5 challenges that school and MAT leaders are facing right now and will likely continue to face for the next 3 to 5 years? So we will begin with that research, but first let's just get the intros out of the way. I've been at iplicit since January. Prior to that, I worked for Arbor. I've also worked for Sims and a smaller company called Parago. So all in all, about 10 years EdTech experience. And before that, I worked in a school for 7 years, a secondary school to be more specific. Guy?
Hi everyone, my name's Guy. I'm one of the solution consultants here at iplicit, and I'm going to be taking you through the software today.
So on your screen now are the results of our research, the themes that came up time and time again during our interviews, which have given us the top 5 challenges in education, and they are in order. Now, if you sat there thinking, well, what has finance software got to do with this? In just a couple of minutes, Guy's going to showcase how iplicit can help with some of this. So the first one was that really did come up first time, every time, is staff wellbeing and staff retention. It's never been more challenging in education to attract staff and to keep them. Many people leaving the profession. So that was number 1. Number 2 is budget versus growth. Do MATs add schools in order to increase funding before they add to their central team? Or do they add to their central team in order to be able to more easily absorb the schools that they're going to grow by? It's a bit of a chicken and egg one, and it's certainly very tricky to navigate. The third one are that legacy systems weren't designed to scale. So if any of your systems were designed pre-2010, when the MATs were very few and far between, your software wasn't built with MATs in mind. If you're using on-premise legacy software, chances are you've got more manual processes than you'd like, you're using more paper than you'd like, and you're certainly spending more money than you'd like in terms of management maintenance. And certainly the cost of adding schools to an MIS or finance system that's legacy and on-premise is disproportionate to the funding you receive for adding that school. Alignment versus autonomy. Many CEOs are aware of how tricky it is to give their schools autonomy without breaking the alignment that's been created at MAT level. It's certainly a fine balance to strike. And then the 5th and final one is siloed data. With all of these different systems available now for student data, staff data, assessment data, HR, payroll, finance, pulling it all together in any meaningful way to give you the analysis at MAT level is certainly very tricky. And it requires external pieces of software, analytics software, maybe like Power BI. So they're the top 5 challenges. That's the results of our research. We wanted to share that with you. I'm sure some, if not all of these, will resonate with anyone that's accessed this online learning session. So let me tell you a little bit more about iplicit. We were formed in 2019, which does make us relatively new. However, each and every one of our founding members has at least 30 years experience in developing or deploying very successfully finance software. So between them, there's not many project scenarios they haven't faced. Then in 2019, they combined forces, combined experience, and iplicit was born. And when they were forming iplicit, they came up with these 3 core missions that we each have front of mind whenever we're interacting with customers or prospective customers. And the first one was to do with a product. They wanted to make finance more simple. What they wanted to do was remove the barrier to entry to a lot of functionality and capabilities of finance software. They wanted to create a software that was so intuitive that you could navigate on instinct by logging in. The second one is to never hold our customers hostage. We want to have raving fans as customers, not people that are with us because they're tied into long-term contracts. So a good example of this is that most of our customers are on rolling monthly contracts, and we've never lost a customer to dissatisfaction. Our retention rate is 97%, and the customers that we have unfortunately lost are due to mergers, acquisitions, or liquidation. And then the third one, which is of course the most ambitious, is that we want to create the world's most powerful, intuitive, yet affordable finance system. And what this guarantees for our customers, because we keep these in the front of our mind, is that you will always be subscribing to a constantly improving piece of software that's held at a fair market price. So that's a little bit of the background about iplicit. iplicit for Education came about mid-2022 when we identified the education market as one that would really benefit from an alternative system to consider, a true cloud system, one that's not expensive to manage and maintain, and certainly one that's not going to cost a disproportionate amount of your funding for adding a school when you add a school to the finance infrastructure. And then we used the rest of 2022 to recruit a very experienced team in customer relations, in implementation, and data migration. We've worked really hard on the product to get that right for the map. The DFE chart of accounts is in there as standard. Lots of other things that we're going to show you in just a couple of minutes. We feel as though the software is ready, the team is ready to deploy, and so we launched at BET in March last month, and our proposition was very well received, and we've been speaking to Mats every single day since. So since our launch in 2019, iplicit has gone from strength to strength. We now have more than 10,000 daily users across more than 70 countries. That 97% retention rate that I mentioned, given that most of our customers are free to leave with only a month's notice, is a particular source of pride, as are the 2 industry awards we've won since then and the 5-star Capterra rating. We'd really like to show off the product now, so I'm going to hand over to Guy for a short demo. I hope you enjoy. Thanks, Guy.
Thanks, Alex. So let's start with some essentials. To begin with, there's nothing to install with iplicit because it was built for the cloud. All you need is a modern web browser to access the system, and that's available from inside and outside of the schools. If I log in, we also work with Active Directory integration, 2-factor authentication, single sign-on to make sure that we're accessing iplicit securely. And then once I'm logged on, I can be presented with graphical representations of information that's important to me. As iplicit is a single environment, so all of the schools, all of the entities within the organisation that we'll talk about later on are stored within one system. So in this case, I'm getting a view across the entire mat. I can see information. The charts that we've got here are all interactive and user definable. So these are all configurable. So if I clicked on a particular academy, for example, then it will filter the rest of the information for that academy. So in this case, I'm looking at age creditors information. It knows that it's Guy who's logged in, so it will be presenting Guy with his graphical representations of information that's important to them, and different users would have different bits of information, different sections of the finance system, and areas of the finance system that's appropriate to them in their role. In this case, I've got age creditors information, top creditors. We've got some budgetary information in here as well, some variances, and iplicit can highlight under or over variances. We've got some potential overspends and some bank balances. All of this is controlled through iplicit security measures that are across the system, and that involves security in terms of permissions, but it also involves security in terms of data as well that we'll talk about later on. Once I've logged in, navigating around iplicit, you've got menus at the top of the screen. These would only be available to me dependent on, again, those permissions that I've got within this finance system. And under each menu, we'll have the relevant appropriate areas for that. So if I look at purchasing, I could go and take a look at my purchase invoices. I could go and take a look at my suppliers. I might want to take a look at aged creditors. All of that information is presented to me through iplicit's inquiry screens. So as along with the dashboards, the inquiry screens are the main way of getting information from iplicit. In this case, as you can see, I've got suppliers that are across the academies as part of the map. But I could view that by different legal entities. So in all of the different inquiry screens within iplicit, you can slice and dice the data in any number of ways. We've also got a navigation bar at the left-hand side. If I click on that, I can also access information through here. So if I wanted to go and take a look at our latest bank reconciliation, I can access that information through here. And the quick launch bar allows me to quickly find things. It also allows the different screens within iplicit to be open. So there's an unlimited amount of screens that each user can open within iplicit. And you've also got the ability to take that information and create your own favorites. So if there's particular areas of the system that you always want to get into, so if I always want to get into my tax registrations or my bank transfer or even an individual, in this case, supplier account, you can access things quickly and easily through the navigation bar. So users can have their own favorite lists. Along with that, in terms of being able to open multiple windows, so while I'm maybe maintaining this particular supplier, but maybe I've got a query on a particular purchase invoice, I can go straight to my purchase invoices without having to close the area of the finance system that I'm in. And I've also got the ability to open multiple documents as well. We'll take a look at how we search through these in a second. I've opened up those 5 invoices. I can quickly open those and then I can navigate through each particular invoice. And then when I'm happy with that information, when I've found the answers to what I need, I can close those down and retain where I was. In our inquiry screens, there's a whole host of ways of getting to information or filtering information. So finding information is really important to us within the finance system. We want it to be a fast and easy and convenient experience for any user, regardless of who I am within the organisation. So for example, in any of the screens, in this purchase invoice screen, I can search for a particular supplier. I could filter that list for a particular supplier. I could start looking for a particular invoice number. You can also, the filters at the top of the screen act differently depending on what data is within each particular column. If I go over to a total, for example, and say, oh, I only wanted to see transactions over £4,000, I can see a filter by that particular way. If I'm looking for a date, I might want to see transactions before or after a certain date, or even in between a particular date. In addition to that, you've also got the ability to create your own sets of data. So I can look at invoices maybe that are on dispute. I could look at my suppliers, and you'll see in the suppliers list, maybe I wanted to just look at my caterers. The sets of data allow me to quickly and easily to create filters of the data that's important to me. These are all user definable. If I wanted to create one, maybe I wanted to copy this one and say I wanted to look for my ICT suppliers. So if we go to our classifications, I've then got my ICT suppliers. I can filter that, and that's available to me every time I log into iplicit and also from wherever I am. All the common things that we've got within the inquiry screens, there are columns at the top of the screen. I can choose the columns that I want to appear in this particular view. So I've wanted to take off these, add more columns, move columns around. And iplicit will remember that from any future time I log in and start using this particular screen. In addition to that, we have attachments, so inbuilt document management within iplicit. So if I wanted to look at these particular documents for this particular supplier, go and check out a particular invoice, I can access this information, and remember that this information is available to me from wherever I access iplicit from. And as well as being able to search through a particular screen, you can also take any of the information in any of these finders and drill down and send that information to Excel. So iplicit includes a full e-procurement system, which can go from requisitions through to orders, through to GRNs, through to invoices, as well as being able to deal with non-PO'd invoices as well. So let's take a look at a document. So I've got a purchase invoice that's gone out to a supplier. If I'm ready to invoice that, we've received the invoice in, I can click on the invoice button. iplicit will copy forward all of the information from the PO or the GRN, including the ability to call off purchase orders or GRNs as well. So we might have a bulk order that we're calling off in little bits, whether it's quantities or values. I can also attach a copy of the document to it. So our inbuilt document management sits across the entire system. Any transaction or any record type can store additional information. You can also create your own filters in there or folders of information. So you can browse, you can drag and drop information into iplicit and store that. And remember, that will become available to you, but it will also become available to any other user of the system who's got access to that particular transaction. So as well as being able to process transactions quickly and simply within iplicit, what we also want to be able to do is be able to operate centrally across the trust. That comes into play with our single environment structure for iplicit. So within the one system, the one iplicit system, you will have all the different schools, whether it's 5 schools, whether it's 50, whether it's 500. All of those schools and academies will be in the one central place, along with any other organisational entities you've got within the group as well. So whether they're commercial operations, whether they're other trusts, whether it's the trust itself, all of which can operate centrally from within iplicit, making it simple to manage. And that also gives us the ability to do a host of automations across the group as well. Things like intercompany transactions, processing of bulk payments, cash transfers, all of which save time for the finance team and provide the management team with real up-to-date information in real time. Against a particular entity, for example, we'll hold information for VAT references, company references, registration details. We can have different financial years. If a company is part of a group and we need to trade with other entities in the group, you've got nice and simple ways in which to maintain who can trade with what, who can trade within the group, what types of intercompany posting routines that you want to process. We can have different stationery, different email addresses for different entities in the group as well. So output information such as whether it's sales invoices, purchase orders, statements, remittances can all be branded accordingly, but also easy to maintain as well. As part of those rules, and once we've set those up, security then comes into play as well. So we've got permissions in terms of what people can do within iplicit, and that's at an individual level or a group level. So you'll usually set up user groups for different members of staff, so it's easy to maintain. We also have what we call data access controls. So our data access controls then enable us to control who has access to the data within iplicit as well. In this case, maybe I've got someone in part of the management team who's responsible for all the secondary schools. I'm responsible for all the academies. I'm responsible for these 3 schools over here. I don't want to give people access to the entire system, or more importantly, the data within the entire system. So our data access controls allow us to choose and set up the different groups, the different schools in this case, that are applicable to this user or this set of users. So they can be users individually or they can be user groups, but that allows us to control from a posting information to make sure that I'm not posting to the wrong school, make sure that I don't have access to the wrong information as well. Now, because we've got all of that information across our organisation in one place, we also want to take advantage of some of the automations that iplicit can bring to the finance team, which include intercompany postings, for example, multi-company postings. That could be postings from anything from a purchase invoice, for example. So let's go and take a look at a purchase invoice. So here's an example of a purchase invoice for this particular supplier, for this entity in the group. And you'll notice on the transaction lines are applicable, in this case it's a cleaning contract, are applicable to the different academies within the group. And so I'm posting that from one invoice. But once I've posted that invoice, iplicit will automatically, as part of our automation centre, have posted all of the intercompany journals to the appropriate company. So putting it into the expense codes and putting it through to the right control accounts for all the subsidiary ledgers as well. all automatically without anyone having to rekey anything or reprocess information. And really importantly, it's then updating the accounts in those other companies, in those other entities, so those other schools, in real time, without the heads or the management team of those particular academies, for example, having to wait for the finance team. That's something that's available across iplicit, and whether or not it's a purchase invoice, it might be a bulk payment, so we might be paying suppliers on behalf of other entities within the group. So in this case, a payment again from the trust in this case is then being allocated out across suppliers across different entities, all from one place, with iplicit then posting all of the intercompany transactions and balances accordingly and automatically. Or it might be something as convenient as a cash transfer as well. So if there was a transfer, and take a look at one that I recently did. Take a look at this particular cash transfer. We're just transferring some money. It could even be from the same bank account and just reallocating it to another entity in the group. iplicit is taking that information and it's posting that between the different balances, between the different loan accounts for the companies automatically. Again, giving me real-time information to begin with, but it's also stopping that duplication of effort from the finance team's point of view as well. Now, because we've got all those entities across the organisation, your chart of accounts becomes a really important characteristic of the finance system. Our chart of accounts is no exception. We have a definable chart of accounts. Importantly for our chart of accounts, though, so in this case we've got it mapped to a DFE standard. So it means I'm compliant for a DFE point of view straight away. But against our chart of accounts, we can have unlimited dimensional analysis against that chart of accounts. Those are set and controlled by our chart of account rules, which are easy to maintain. So it also future-proofs you. So should another regulatory requirement happen in 3, 4, 5, 10 years' time, iplicit's easy to add additional dimensions, additional analysis across the chart of accounts, but also across your entities as well. So different entities within the group, you might have an educational training division that needs different analysis to one of the schools. The primary schools might need a different analysis to our secondary schools. Any type of structure that you allow within our dimensional analysis means I don't need to reanalyze the data once it's in the finance system. We do that at source. And we can build up rules, build up additional information, additional dimensions to that chart of account at any point in time. I say we, that's the royal we, because you can maintain that and manage that yourselves on an ongoing basis. With that chart of accounts, although we want it in DFE format for our maybe annual return reporting, that type of thing, but also we need statutory and compliance reporting, management reporting. You'll have different stakeholders that need to look at that chart of accounts in different ways, shapes and forms. It might be, this is how our heads like to look at information. This is how our management team, our business team need to analyse information. All of those chart of accounts can be held within what we call our dynamic accounting packs. So our dynamic packs allow us, or dynamic account structures, allow us to have different settings, different mappings of that chart of accounts. So in this case, I've got a DFE format, but I might have a format for the trust, maybe, needs it in SOFA or SORP related format. So I can have that chart of accounts mapped onto that, all within iplicit, all within the same system. We might have different stakeholders for the management team. The management team like to see things differently. You might have a trading arm within the organisation, a commercial arm that maybe needs to be compliant with FRS 102. All of that means that within one system, I've got that information live, and that's where it comes into our analysis within the management accounts that we'll take a look at next. So reporting and analysis is important to any finance system, and we've spent a lot of time making sure that we can deliver both in graphical format and in non-graphical format, reporting information out to the finance team, to the management team, to the wider audience, all available in real time. They can take part, and as you've seen already, in graphical format with our dashboards that are all configurable and user definable. But it also extends out to things like, because we're again taking advantage of that consolidated area, if I wanted to take a look at things like age creditors, I can see age creditors across the group. So you've only got one database of suppliers to maintain. It also means that I can see exposure to a particular supplier. It also means the same. I can do the same on the sales ledger as well. We can group information together by entity. We can group information into different supplier groups. You can have an unlimited number of control accounts within iplicit. So all these little controls allow us to analyze the data and segregate the data to make sure that you're being as efficient as you can within the finance system. But then we need to report on that information across the group as well. That's available through iplicit, through our different inquiry screens. So if we took a look at a trial balance, for example, in this case, I'm looking at a trial balance for the entire trust. Because we're a consolidated single environment, I can view the information in real time for the trust. I might want to drill down and see how that's done. In this case, I've grouped things by the different types of schools that I've got going. So I could see things by secondary, by primary, all without me having to reanalyze the data or export the data, and importantly, available to me in real time. And because we've got things like those intercompany transactions, it means that I want to hide eliminating transactions and accounts from a group point of view. iplicit will go and take those out of the statements that I'm looking at. I might want to look at that information maybe from a different viewpoint. Maybe I'm looking at it from an income expenditure account across the group is available for me, but I want maybe that in a different format. You've got different stakeholders, those different investment holders want to see information in slightly different ways. In this case, we're looking at information in a SOFA format, but maybe I wanted to look at that from the main accounts return from a main accounts returns point of view. I can use those dynamic accounts packs to remap the data live in real time, give me that analysis, give me that granular detail with the ability to drill down into data should I need to. We might have a different format for the management team. They might want information in a different way, shape or form. We might need to produce the accounts for the charity. All of that's available to me or to any users across iplicit, including trustees potentially. I might want to see an expenditure analysis. Might want to check actuals versus budgets. My expenditure analysis, I'm looking at expenditure, in this case across a set of schools in these particular areas, but maybe I was only responsible for certain bits of iplicit or certain bits of the trust. So maybe I just wanted to see that information, or I was only allowed to view that information because I was responsible for key stage 3 and 4 across the organisation. iplicit can ring fence that data, filter that information and provide that granular detail with those drill downs available to those users in real time on any device. And I might be viewing this information on a mobile device as well. My budgets versus actuals, I can put year-to-date information. We might want to combine forecasting information with that information as well. So I can see potential overruns, potential underspends or overspends in particular areas as well. All of that access at my fingertips, again, with that ability to drill down into those underlying transactions, should make it a lot more simple and easy to manage across the organisation. As well as being able to self-service users and users being able to access information in iplicit on any device from anywhere, we also have the ability to send information out automatically as well within the system. That's achieved through our analytics tools. Our analytics tools cover off those inquiries, cover off those dashboards, but also cover off reporting areas as well. All of which can be run on demand, but I can also take something, for example, like our age creditors information. And any of our reports, they're all based on the different inquiries that we've got from within inside iplicit, can also be scheduled to be sent out of the system in real time or on a scheduled basis. So maybe I want this age creditors report to go to everybody on a Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. iplicit can be scheduled to do that and then send that information out to that group of users or set of users in real time, in any format as well, PDF file, Excel spreadsheet, CSV, etc., etc. And we haven't forgotten about the world's favourite spreadsheet as a reporting option as well. What we have built is an iplicit add-in to Excel. So with that add-in, I can log in from Excel into iplicit. What that then enables me to do is to extract any of the data, any of the inquiries out of iplicit live and in real time out to Excel. And it also includes functions, implicit functions that allow me to take information and create live, on a cell-by-cell basis, live information pull down from iplicit into Excel. You can use this to produce management accounts, management information across all areas of iplicit. And it also gives end users the flexibility to be able to change and manipulate the view of the data in real time. So again, it's enhancing that self-service part of iplicit as well, and a really popular feature that we've got. So it allows you to construct using Excel, the spreadsheets and management reports that you want, should you wish. And that will work with the local version of Excel and the web version. Approval and workflow is another area that we're very conscious of that's important to any MAT. And we've got an extensive authorization workflow, all very configurable. So if we take a look at this one, but you can build workflows around any attribute in iplicit. So whether it's approving a new supplier, a cash expense form, approving a VAT return, a bank reconciliation, a payment run. You can build approval workflows around anything. They'll extend down to also line level approval on things like procurement. So a purchase invoice could go out to different heads of department to be approved across their different areas and also across MATs. The workflow themselves, you can define the different stages of the workflow. You can define the requirements, the different rules that you want the workflow to act around, the coding structure, the areas of the transaction that need to be approved at the right levels, and get iplicit to automate that whole entire process. In terms of who that gets sent out to, we can do that to user groups, so it could be department heads, it could be hierarchies, and again those hierarchies can be built into the workflow to quite a complex level. We can do things like control self-approval, self-authorization. You can choose the different steps that the approvers will get to have, to reject, to edit, maybe to amend the particular approval as well before it goes through the workflow. All of which is documented and detailed in our extensive audit logs, which run across iplicit as well. How that works in action, let's go and take a look. So we'll take a look at workflows and approvals, but let's start by looking at the mobile app we have for iplicit as well. So this is included free with the software and gives especially non-finance users the ability to get to information within iplicit quickly and easily. That extends to being able to run things like your dashboards. So accessible, the same dashboard, same information I've got available through the web pages is available to be on my mobile device. As well as looking for information and finding information, I can also go through approvals, cash expenses, timesheets if you're using timesheets. In this case, maybe I wanted to raise a purchase order or complete a purchase order. I might have started something off on my PC or my laptop. I want to finish it off on my phone, or vice versa. I can add information, and if I'm happy with that, when I click on submit, that will then trigger the workflow. So iplicit will then go and send notifications automatically through to the browser, through to people on the web pages, and it will also send push notifications out to your devices and email notifications out to the users as well with a hyperlink on it. As that goes through, maybe I want to do some expenses. I can complete an expense claim. Maybe I've been travelling between schools, choose the legal entity I'm allowed to register it against, and then add in what it is, in this case maybe some travel expenses, put in some details. Choose a cost centre and department, and again the cost centres and department that become available to me are only the cost centres and departments using that data access control that's available to me. Maybe I want to take a picture of my receipt. Attach that to my transaction. If I'm happy with that. And also remember, the authorization process can go down to line level approval as well. So if I've got multiple lines on there that need to be approved by different department heads, even different school heads, iplicit will send the appropriate pieces of information out to the relevant authorizers. Those authorizers, again, will get notifications through their phone. They can go through and approve things on their phone. They can also go through and approve things through the mobile, back through the web pages. So if we just jump into the web page and I go to my authorizations, I can see the transaction that I need to approve. see the details behind it if I need to. There's a detailed log that will get stored automatically against each particular transaction, and then I can approve the appropriate bits of that transaction for me. And the same goes for expenses as well. So those expenses will have come through. They will have gone off for approval. And my approvers can see the information. They also will be able to obviously see the attachments that we've made to that claim as well. And they'll get stored with the transaction as they go through. So from an audit trail point of view, all of that information is stored within the document management system within iplicit. And finally, for today at least, the last piece of iplicit we wanted to show you today was to do with automations. Automations is something we're really passionate about at iplicit. It's something where we think we can add some real value. And we have an automation center where you can build automations. So iplicit can take control of some of those more mundane tasks, some of those tasks that will involve duplication of information. And our automations, let's go and take a look, cover a whole plethora of different areas. So if we take a look at maybe this particular accrual automation, automations can sit across a wide area of iplicit, and it's an expanding area as well. Because we update the software every month, we're always incrementally adding new features and functions to iplicit based on customer feedback, for example. So in this case, we can have automations around accruals. You might be using our fixed asset register, so you might want automation around auto capitalization of assets when you buy them, depreciation, amortization. Our fixed asset register also allows for the capture of capital and non-capital assets, deferred income, disbursements, all those eliminations, the intercompany transactions, all give you control and allow you to give iplicit the tools to automate and save time for the finance team, and again be able to deliver more real-time information to those end users. So for example, on this accrual automation, automations can be set to run manually. They can be run on a scheduled basis, and they can also be run automatically as soon as a transaction is posted. With accruals, it makes sense that I run this when I decide I want to run it. But if I click on my run button, iplicit will allow me to go through different criteria. I could do this, for example, for different legal entities. If I'm happy with that, iplicit will then go through, it'll look through my outstanding purchase orders or potentially my GRNs or even invoices or expenses that haven't yet been approved. And then once it's done that, what iplicit's then done, it will have created me my accruals, just like that. And as part of those accruals, it will link back each accrual back to the originating transactions. So again, we're very conscious about making sure that we've got the audit trails, in this case linking back to the originating purchase order or orders that make up these accruals. And that's the same principle around a lot of the automation. That could be iplicit automatically calculating your prepayments when we calculate prepayments, and accruals as well. Not only do we do the month-end adjustments, but also we'll automatically reverse those out in the following period as well. All part of the month-end process that we want to try and cut down and automate as much as possible across the system for the entire finance team. That brings us to a conclusion for today. I hope you found that useful and informative. If you do want more information, there's a lot more information that can be found on our website at iplicit.com, where you can also book meetings to speak to Alex and the rest of the team if you'd like to investigate iplicit further and see if it's the right finance solution for you. Apart from that, thanks a lot for your time and attention, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.